What's good, everyone? Welcome to a very, very interesting episode of Talking Nets. We're coming into this episode on a little bit of a different schedule. Usually we go after every two games, but we just played two pretty difficult games to watch, pretty difficult games to be a Nets commentator about, two losses. So we decided to wait a night, and then we got a nice win, back-to-back games. KD sits the first night, comes back the second end of the back-to-back, and we get a win against a Miami Heat team without Jimmy Butler and some of their other pieces. But at least we're coming in on a win. I have some positive stuff to talk about. Nobody wants to hear a podcast where you're just lamenting and languishing in the fact that you're a Nets fan and, oh, we got all these players, but what are we going to do? Trade Kyrie for defense. This is the worst team. It's all going to fall apart. Listen, this has always been a podcast of positivity. Even last season, on those losing streaks, on those crazy times where we didn't have any wins to talk about, we could wait 2, 3, 4 episodes not getting any wins to talk about. But listen, we got a win to talk about tonight, and the Nets are still the talk of the NBA, and they still have the most talented big three of all time. But that's enough from hearing from me. I know you want to hear from my guy, Keith. Keith, what's up?
Nah, they definitely don't want to hear from me, bro. I'm glad you're leading us in because my girl was telling me she was reading Reddit and they had like a list of like top Nets podcasts and we were in the top like 5 or something, but someone said, "Hey, I don't like talking Nets." And they said, "Why?" And the person said, "Oh, I just don't like Keith." So yo, coming to you live on a Sunday night. Some people will be listening to this Monday morning, so good morning to you. The Nets are all right. Hudson talked about it, just like last year, right? I'm seeing some things from last year. We had a losing streak last year, and the Miami Heat were there for us to help us break that losing streak. Now, we didn't just have a losing streak. Back-to-back games is not a losing streak. It's pretty bad when you call it scary hours and you go and lose to the worst offense in the NBA, but we'll get to that in a second. It has some similar Nets ties, same old Nets, right? Guys dropping their like career highs on us. Like Bam had 41, Sexton had 42 last year. Brandon Ingram had his career high. Devontae Graham had his career high. Markelle Fultz had his career high on the Nets. It's the same old Nets, but it's not. This is not 2013. It's 7-11-13. These guys are just getting started. They haven't even practiced together. It's the beginning of something. The first loss that we took to Cleveland, the next morning Sports Center opened and they said the big three with the Miami Heat, LeBron, Wade, Bosh, they lost their first game. The Celtics big three, they lost their first game. It's going to happen. So I'm chilling, man. Talking Nets, episode 76. Keith McPherson and Hudson Flynn. Hudson, where are we going next here?
I mean, listen, we know we don't want to talk too much about those two L's. And honestly, what is there to be said that hasn't been said already? Because let's look at those two losses against Cleveland and we see the same old problems that we've been talking about for this whole season with the Nets. You know, trade or not, defense is still an issue. Turnovers are still an issue. Rebounding is still an issue. And guess what? James Harden, great player. That trade didn't change any of that because it wasn't meant to change any of that, right? And I think that's something that, a point I want to get across to Nets fans before we, quickly go talk about, Kyrie going off, KD going off, but Sexton taking over 20 straight points is listen, we made this trade for James Harden. That's a big shakeup. It shook up not just the Nets, but the entire league. There are some things that still need to fall in place. The Nets have roster spots we need to fill. We just filled one of them with Norvell Pell. We'll get into more about what that means for the Nets' future going forward. But listen, there are still spots that need to be filled. There are still tinkering that needs to be done with this team. We saw Coach Nash get involved in some of that tinkering. He gave Landry Shamet like one last shot, 20 minutes. Didn't do much with it. Maybe that cut down on Bruce Brown's minute, but then in the Heat game, Bruce Brown got much more run, showing some changes and showing some growth. And listen, that's what we're doing this season. We're growing, we're meshing, we're gelling as a team so that going forward, we can be that Death Star. The Death Star is not fully operational yet. We are, 75, 80%. And let me tell you, that 75, 80% is still one of the best teams in the league. We still beat the Bucks after no practice. This is a good team. This is a great team. But for us to be that runaway championship contenders, there are some things we need to fix. And we saw all of that kind of be a microcosm in those two games against Cleveland. Not so much the first game. That was just, the Colin Sexton night. I'll write it off. But the second game, we saw some issues, and we saw the same issues. And honestly, I don't want to get too deep into it. you guys, Nets fans listening out there, I know you're frustrated. I know it's all this and all that, but listen, this is a positivity podcast. We're not trying to bring that negative energy. So I'll just keep my thoughts short. Same old problems. But guess what? They're going to be fixed. You can't plan for Colin Sexton dropping 42 on you, and you can't fix things by bringing in acquisitions that haven't been made yet. So we still see the same old holes. And that's really all I got in those two games. And Keith, I'll let you take it away. But honestly, all I'm saying to Nets fans is listen, it's 2 games. It sucks to see it against the same team. Sucks to get back-to-back revenge games from Torian Prince and to watch Jared Allen having so much fun, smiling up and down the court on us. But it's early. We're going to put ourselves together. We're going to finish filling out this team. And like Steve Nash said, this team isn't going to be solved by, bringing in all new players and making all these big trades. It's going to be solved by the players on the team making a commitment to this team and showing that they want to play defense. They want to cut down on the turnovers. They want to help with rebounding. And listen, we got winners on this team, and I don't see any reason why this team isn't going to keep winning going forward and bring that positive mentality. Keith, go ahead.
Yeah, man. Kyrie put on his Instagram that, we're going to be on that stage. We're going to be there in the end. And I believe that. When I'm looking at this Nets team right now, I'm also not panicking. The Nets are currently 5 in the East, the 5th seed in the East. They're 10-8. And this team is still evolving. This team is not final yet. There's roster spots to be filled. There's hella practices that will be had before we even kind of get an idea of what this team is going to be like. So 10-8, and we're 18 games in on 72. That's a quarter of the way through the season. I'm not panicking. Now, there's some bad things that we saw in these games. I want to send a shout out to Jared Allen. It was emotional for me this weekend. No, I'm happy. I'm happy that dude got that. Him and Torian Prince. Torian Prince was balling. And like when we talk about revenge games, like I'm glad they got that instant revenge game. Colin Sexton, Famous Low said that it was scary hours, and the Slim Reaper and the bearded one, that's Freddie and Jason, and Kyrie is Michael Myers. Well, Colin Sexton was Ted Bundy. This dude came out and he was killing, and he kept killing with no regard for human life. And I was sitting there watching the game, and I'm just like, no, we didn't want to go double OT with those heads, but it's all good, right? There's no reason that we should go lose to the worst offense in the NBA, but that's basketball. I know there's a lot of people out there on Nets Twitter too that they go back and forth and they want to say who knows basketball and who doesn't know basketball. And I see a lot of people talking about, well, anyone that knows basketball knows these guys need time to develop their chemistry. And that's true. They're harnessing their powers. They're powerful right now. It's scary hours, but I knew scary hours could flip where it's going to be scary hours in the media and for the haters like, look at the Nets. They got washed by the Cavs. But at the same time, it takes time. We're harnessing our powers. It's like Spider-Man. When he first gets his powers, man, he's got to figure out how to web sling. He's got to figure out how to wall crawl, how to swing from building to building, control his spider sense. Like he didn't know how to do that the first day, week, month. You're not going to figure out how to put KD, Harden, Kyrie, all these guys on the court in a couple days. And you definitely can't do that with guys like Landry Shamet. You definitely can't do that with like relying on Reggie Perry. Shout out to Reggie Perry. That's my guy, but he's a whole rookie. Like we're relying on Reggie Perry as a rookie to give us like quality minutes,
At
Uncle Jeff
center, a
Green.
position he doesn't play. He's a
Right.
power forward. Like,
Exactly. We're making him, yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into the like negative stuff that we saw from the Cavs game back to back, because it's like, yo, you want to forget about those games as quick as possible, because in the grand scheme of things, they're not going to matter. Miami Heat, thank you. The Miami Heat. I love that the Heat are there for us when we need a win. Jimmy Butler didn't play. Tyler Hero didn't play. And you get KD back on the court, which I was like, yo, we miss KD. Like he has to play. Like I know there's the Achilles, but there's going to become a point in the season where it's like we can't rest KD anymore because we need him. Buddy is good for 30, and he's just a different type of player. And we waited this long as Nets fans to have KD. So like I don't know how many rest nights KD's going to get after like I don't know March. Either way, I don't know. I'm rambling, and it's Sunday night, but Nets fans, it's all right. We are good. We're better than good, and I'm looking forward to running it back with the Heat again and going into this next week.
yeah, exactly. And, last thing I'll say about the Cavs is look, obviously Jared Allen, Torian Prince revenge games, they brought that different energy. But the Cavs have Colin Sexton averaging 27 points per game, and they're the number one defense in the league. So they're not to be slept on. You know, Nets have a great offense, but great defenses can play too. So we saw some of that moving forward. You said it all about KD, man. He is like, we're seeing it. This is MVP KD. He is either the one or the two in MVP. If the season were to end today, he's one or two in MVP voting. Embiid's really going out there and showing what he can do, but KD is just playing on a different level. Obviously named Eastern Conference Player of the Week last week. He's getting that recognition. He's just in absolute MVP form, 30 plus points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, just absolutely killer. And it's not just the offense. Obviously, we saw that him missing on the defense. People forget he's a 7-footer.
Yeah.
That man can grab rebounds. That man can play defense. Like his wingspan, like when he plays against smaller guys, it just cancels out their shots. And that's why, to me, the Colin Sexton thing was so impressive, because Colin Sexton was shooting against great defense over KD's wingspan. Like you can't plan for things like that. But the impact that KD has as a coach on the court, as a player on offense, on defense, just settling the team down, he's all that and more. And it's just so obvious that the Nets needed him. And let's be honest, we beat the Miami Heat wire to wire, but we still needed him, and we needed Kyrie, and we needed James Harden to win that game, because it wasn't just runaway success like we thought it might be, like a big double-digit win. They had Bam going off, playing like a combination of prime Kobe, prime Tim Duncan. It didn't even matter. And, we run into that, and people complain that the Nets lost their culture after we traded away Jared Allen. But we still got that culture of giving up career highs and playing up and down to our competition. So we got that culture.
It's the same.
But look, man. I mean, I'll just say, Keith, before I let you take it away, is we have these players. We need these players to play, and we need them to stay healthy, to gain that chemistry and move going forward, because we see it for whether it's 75% of the game in the Heat game, or in the Cavs game when the Nets were shooting like 100% for 5 minutes when Scary Hour started. Even if it was just that 5 minutes, we see what this team is, what this team can be. And now it's just, the task of going out every game and bringing it closer and closer and closer to having that be 100% of the game. And then once we reach that and the Death Star is fully operational, there's no stopping this team in the league, because talent-wise, there's no team that's even close.
Bro, what did you think about Harden playing the 4, starting at the 4 in the second game against the Cavs?
Listen, Nets fans were complaining we didn't have a stretch 4. Okay, James Harden. No, honestly, I don't know. I mean, it was kind of just a symptom of what we had seen. The Nets didn't exactly have the depth. They were going out there. We put Jeff Green there a couple of times in the game against the Heat. We ran a 4-guard lineup, if you count KD as a guard, which is kind of the way he was playing, with Joe Harris out there. And honestly, I don't know. I want to give Jeff Green that run, because our guy is shooting over 50% from the 3-point range. And when I see him shoot with the way his shot is and just how beautiful it is, like, yeah, every time, like when it doesn't go in, I'm genuinely shocked. And let's be real, it doesn't go, he doesn't miss very often. So I don't have time to be shocked that often.
Uncle Jeff Green, they call him Green because he's money. I mean, there's some guys on this team that are doing their part. Uncle Jeff is doing his part. TL3 came back, right? TLC, he went missing for 2 games. He had 0 points back-to-back games. He came back. Landry Shamet, I mean, that's not a guy that I can mention in the same breath as those 2 guys. I'm just thinking player to player next. Landry Shamet, why do we trade for him? I thought the guy would shake out of some of his early struggles, but like from what I'm seeing from this guy, like he can't be coming off the bench. He should be coming off the bench, killing and knocking down shots. He's not hitting open shots. He just looks like he doesn't have it. Bruce Brown, what can Brown do for you? We all know defense, and like this team's glaring
and rebounding was and energy.
Yeah, of course. And just bringing that dog mentality and energy and getting boards, little man getting boards. I know it's tough to give the guy minutes. He's not the greatest offensive power. DeAndre Jordan, turn back the clock night, a couple of Lob City highlights back. I don't know. They're making DeAndre look like, he's 5 years younger. But like we all know that that's not consistent. That's not going to get us to where we need to go, man. I know there's rumors about JaVale McGee. What do you think about this Norvell Pell? Let's talk about him for a little bit. Like at least that's a signing. We've seen a couple clips of him, and he seems like he fits what Nets fans are looking for right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just give the scouting report quick. This man was a top recruit. I believe he was committed to St. John's at one point, so he's got those connections. But then he decommitted. He wanted to go straight to the draft. 5-star recruit, number one center in his class. But then he had some injury issues. He goes undrafted, and this man has played in just about every single like international league that like he's played in like Paraguay, Venezuela, Israel, Lebanon, like all of these places. And then he ends up on the 76ers last season. And in, I think, 24 games, he averaged some pretty all right numbers in about 10 minutes. He was scoring some, he was getting a lot of blocks. And that's really what people talk about are his blocks, his defensive energy, how bouncy he is. And all these highlights are of him, stuffing DeAndre Jordan is like one of his first highlights on his highlight tape. And that's what we're looking for, right? Like a bouncy, youthful defender who can bring that energy and
Yeah.
that size that we've been lacking. Like he's built like and plays like or tries to play like, a prime bouncy DeAndre Jordan. Obviously, he's not that guy. You can't compare the two even, but he brings that level of energy that the Nets have been missing, especially on the defensive end. And obviously, that's going to turn into some foul trouble. And that's been one of the issues that the 76ers had with him, one of the reasons he wasn't on a team yet. But listen, the Nets aren't looking for him to play 40 minutes a night. They're looking for him to play some minutes and give that defensive energy and to maybe, get some combination energy with James Harden, work on their lobs together, bring that chemistry up. And honestly, like this is like the kind of low risk, high reward signing that I like for this team right now because it gets a body in there, it gets him playing, but at the same time, if it doesn't work out and we have to sever ties, it's not a loss because we barely invested anything into him in the first place. So honestly, I think that this is a great signing. I love the energy he brings. I love the position. I love his size. And honestly, I just hope he plays because if he doesn't play, then why bring him in? And that's one thing that I've been thinking about is you talked about Landry Shamet. Why Landry Shamet's getting all this run? Why isn't Tyler Johnson getting the chance to put some shots up with this team?
Yeah.
Like,
We've seen
I
enough.
just I just hope at a certain point that Nash is willing enough to experiment to the point where, listen, if Norvell Pell comes out and he's playing consistently better than DeAndre Jordan, and he says, okay, DeAndre, you were playing 25 minutes a night and Norvell was playing 15, switch those roles up. 25 for Norvell, 15. And who knows if that's going to happen? It probably won't. But I just want the flexibility for that to be able to happen. And so that going forward, we can find out what works and experiment. And I got to give credit because we've been experimenting. I think we have the most different starting lineups in the NBA, and we're changing up our rotations. And it doesn't always work, but at least we're trying something. And that's what I like from this team is we're not stagnant. We're not sending out the same starting five every time. Even the scary hours, we had 2 games with them, 2 different starting fives. And I like that energy. And I just hope it continues because that seems to me to be something very important for this team as we work to find what path is the path of least resistance towards championship.
Yeah, they're collecting data. Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni, Jacques Vaughn, those guys they're experimenting, they're failing, they're experimenting, they're winning, they're experimenting, they're finding things out. And this whole thing is an experiment and it's ever changing. And we get Vel Pell, that's cool. But what's the next move? I saw they got the $5.7 million from Spence's injury. There's still 2 open roster spots. There's conversation about JaVale McGee. I don't know. I can't get too high or too low on the Nets right now, or this, big 3 of the Nets, the 7, 11, 13, because, man, it's just in the beginning. We just started up the Ferrari. We're like just figuring out where all the buttons are before we drive this thing. Like, it's all good. Next thing I was thinking about with the Nets, right? You mentioned Tyler Johnson, Chris Chioza, Landry Shamet, right? We talked about trading him. I'm like, Sean Marks, do you think that Sean Marks could possibly flip Landry Shamet or trade one of these other guards? Or like, I don't know. I feel like something else is coming, but I'm done with Shamet. I was just like coming up with ways to say his name and clown him like Sham Wow. Because I just was like, yo, why do we trade the 19th pick? I see the memes about Sadiq Bey. Nets Twitter talk about it. Then you see Landry Shamet out there. I'm like, what else is coming from Sean Marks? Is there going to be a flip for this dude? Get this dude up out of here. I'm sorry, I got no love for him. We lose Jared Allen, Karis LeVert. We got love for those guys. This guy wasn't a part of that. We just met this guy a couple months ago. The
A
Nets got to
flip for
shore
what
things up.
though?
I don't
Like
know. I don't think anybody really would
his
want the guy for
I
what he's
don't
put on the court this year. But
I
I'm like,
mean
you bring him
like
in here, get him out of here and try and get something better.
Yeah, hopefully, ideally, he's involved in some other conversations for something else, or obviously, ideally, he turns it around. We have faith in Sean Marks. I don't think he'd just give up, such a high pick with such, potential players sitting there for nothing if he didn't see anything. And, he's a developmental guy, so maybe there's something coming. And I don't want to give up on this guy. I see the potential. I see that he's got playoff experience, that he can take these shots, and he usually used to at least usually hit them. So, I think that at a certain point we got to cut ties. But until then, I don't think we can keep playing him because he
But
comes on and he's a liability.
what do you think is more likely? The Nets trade Landry Shamet or the Nets trade Kyrie?
I mean, like they're gonna trade Shamit, but like, what you want to talk about things that are more likely is what are we gonna trade Shamit, or are we gonna waive him? Like,
Right. Like,
you know, I
just see you
I
later,
don't
bro.
want to I don't want to just completely, like diss the guy and just hate on him because we love all of our Nets players. We have support for them, no matter what. But like he's just
Nah,
not it, and he's
he's not
not
it. And that's
playing like
not.
he's it. And like that's not what this team's about, right? This team is not about making players go from not it to it. We need players that are doing it and playing well, and we don't have that right now in him.
So listen, bro, we are fans. We can't hoop for shit. Obviously, you and I are not basketball players. We're critical of these guys with what we see, the numbers we see, like what our eyes tell us. I'm sure they're great guys. Like Landry Shamet, I'm sure he's a nice guy. But as far as him wearing a Nets jersey, I'm good on that. Trash. We're podcasters. There are NBA former players like Shaq and like Charles Barkley that rip these guys nightly, and they rip the guys like Donovan Mitchell that are balling out. We're saying what we're saying about Landry Shamet as fans, like get this dude off my team. But I wanted to mention that. Did you see Kevin Durant basically on Instagram saying about Charles Barkley, like, I don't know why you guys asked for this idiot's opinion. And then with Shaq had that like awkward interview with Donovan Mitchell where he basically was like, I don't think you got what it takes to take it to the next level. And, you know, Shaq had no business really doing that. It was cringy. But KD comes on Instagram and he's like, yo, these guys have coaches they work with every day. Like these old heads need to go enjoy retirement. I love that these guys have the internet. Like Katie's not using his burner. He's speaking out and saying whatever he wants to say. And he's kind of defending guys. Like I feel like it's super played out what they're trying to do on TNT with like these old heads hating on the like current players.
Yeah, and like Shaq is like a consensus top 10 player in NBA history, like at least. Like some argue he could be even the greatest with the way that he played in his position, but like why is he so insecure? Like this man is just anytime he sees any like a little bit of shine of greatness, like Donovan Mitchell, like maybe he won't be an MVP, but like he's gonna be a consistent all-star. He might make some all NBA. Like
He's a
why not
savage.
just why not just enjoy greatness while it's here, while you can watch it? Like I'm genuinely saddened that I couldn't watch like prime Shaq play. Like I got
Yeah.
to see old Shaq. I got to see Suns Shaq. I got to see Cavs Shaq. That's not I don't want to see Rainbow Warrior Shaq with all those different jerseys on. But like just enjoy greatness while it's here. And I think that's just what Katie's speaking about. Like who wants to hear as fans who like I don't want to hear it. As soon as the game ends on TNT, off over to yes for the post game. Not
Always.
about that. Always. It's just nobody wants to hear him. That bullshit is just played out at this point. And honestly, the sooner they stop doing it, the sooner TNT is going to start doing better because all this talk about NBA ratings and like supporting social justice makes the ratings go away. You want to know what actually makes the ratings go away? Is like bullshit NBA commentators hating on their like the players in the
Yeah. It's
league. Like
unnecessary.
that's what makes ratings go down. I'm just so done with it. Like who cares at this point?
Yeah, it's unnecessary. All right, Mel. Looking ahead, man, what are you thinking about our schedule coming up? Right, we got Miami tonight. Let's say it's Monday night, pretty much. People be listening to this Monday. We got Miami running it back with them. Then we got Atlanta, Trey Young. Oh, that's not basketball. Our most famous clip. We get to see Trey Young. Trey Young actually responded to Steve Nash saying that's not basketball, and he said something along the lines of like, "Well, if that's not basketball, like he must not have watched himself do it years ago." And then that got our clip more run. I appreciated that. Then we got Oklahoma City Friday. So just this week, we got Miami Monday, Atlanta Wednesday, Oklahoma City Friday. Then we'll probably do another pod after the Washington game Sunday. I think we got some winnable games coming up right here. And we're obviously playing these teams that we've seen already. Atlanta,
Yeah, and
Oklahoma City,
honestly, like let's be real,
Washington.
the winnable games for the Nets are the big games because we've had more trouble against the bad teams than we have against the good
Playing
teams.
up
Like
and
that's something I
down.
wanted to ask you about. Like, do you think it's like a reflection of the team, or is it just they're building that consistency as they move forward? Because we've seen the Nets eviscerate the Celtics, the Warriors, the Bucks, all these good teams, and then lose to Atlanta, losing to the
Yeah.
Cavs.
I think it's this. I think it's this. And we had that episode. I think the episode was January 11th, and I titled it Playing Up and Down because you and I were talking about early. We were seeing them play up and down. And I think a team like this with so much hype, like we are on the full on hype train. The whole NBA is watching. People are listening to this podcast just to hear what the Nets fans are saying about their team now. Like there's so much hype around this team that when they're playing the Bucks, they're going to play up. When they're playing the Jazz, they're going to play up because they know, okay, we're playing against other NBA superstars. We got to be on our game and not get embarrassed. When they play down and they're playing against the Cavs or they're playing against the Memphis Grizzlies, which not knocking the Grizzlies because obviously they have Ja Morant and Valanciunas, but when the Nets played them, they didn't have those two guys. They had trouble beating the Grizzlies. They played down because they kind of let their guard down. Like, oh, KD and Kyrie, there's no way we could lose these guys. And we got Harden now. Nah, it's just like I think it's everyone knowing that this team is going to be there in the end. Like there's so much talent on this team. The talent gap is so wide, but it's not when anyone everyone takes a step back. I feel like we're just not there yet. These guys got to practice together, but this team already is has done some good things. When we came out in that first Cavs game, we started off 10 for 10. I was like, this is unreal. It was like the greatest show on earth. Like I said last podcast, we came out and hit our first 10 for 10 field goals, and then it kind of the wheels kind of fell off. But there was flashes of that with Kyrie and some things Harden did, and obviously with KD against Miami last night. Like there's flashes of greatness that are gonna come together. These guys just need reps. It's playing up and down. I'm glad that we play up. And that's the last thing I'll say about it. I'm glad that we play up because that tells me that when the playoffs come and we know who's across from us, these guys are going to be playing up.
Exactly. And I want to focus on that message that you put out of like, this team is great. Like it has greatness all up and down its roster. Like that's not one of the concerns. And like, we put out after that second Cavs loss, we put out a request for some voicemails, some people to, DM us comments, questions, things about the game. Because we were thinking we might do a 2-loss episode. No one wants to talk about that. Let's talk about what other people want to talk about. And we got back just, a lot of negative energy. And I get that. I get, we were all feeling a lot of negative energy after that Cavs game. But, I think there are some people that just need, honestly, to be told to just calm down, take a breath. Rome wasn't built in a day. This Nets championship, this roster was not built in a day. And I'm surprised I have to say that to Nets fans because we've been waiting for this day so long. Like the amount of losses that we have watched and the amount of struggles that this team has. Like looking at Jeremy Lin being like, oh, maybe this is the guy. Maybe this is the future that can turn us around. Like, listen, this Nets team is the greatest Nets team ever put together. And it's going to be the greatest Nets team now, and it's going to be even greater than that at the end of the season. And let's just let that be the case because, listen, there's going to be ups, there's going to be down. The Nets are going to be playing up, they're going to be playing down. And honestly, the message that I want to leave this podcast off with is look, I get it. You want us to be, the Thanos snap right away. We got all the Infinity Stones, we got all the power. Let's just take down the league, snap it all away. We got the stones. We just got to put them in the gauntlet. Let's just wait and see how this team develops. Because look, there's a long way to go in this season, and there's a long way to go when it comes to developing this team into a winning championship contender. And it's going to happen. I think you just need to be patient.
Yeah, patience. It's hard to come by, but it's the reality. Like anything worth having takes time. And for these guys to come together and build a championship team the first time they're playing it, like it's not going to happen in a week. And Nets fans, like we were content with ISO Joe, and we thought we had a good shot with Darren Williams and D'Lo making a run. And then when we got to the D'Lo era, we thought, D'Lo was going to be our superstar. Maybe like all I'm saying is, in the past couple years and the past few eras of these Nets teams, we've never had this kind of firepower, star power on the team. We're in good shape, and we're, like I said, we're 10-18. Everybody's going to give us their best shot. We are going from the hunter to the hunted, and that's okay. That's fun. As a Nets fan, remember when nobody wanted to come play here? Remember when no free agents wanted to come to New Jersey, Brooklyn? Remember being that upstart where it was like one day Brooklyn will be the destination? Well, now Brooklyn is the destination, and we are on that journey. Enjoy it. Don't let the rest of NBA Twitter or Lakers fans or Celtics fans get in your head or hate. Like, you're a Nets fan, whether you're a new Nets fan, a old Nets fan, a bandwagon, or just a fan of KD, Kyrie, Harden, whatever. Maybe you're just a Bruce Brown fan.
You're still a Nets fan.
Yeah, come along with us for the ride. It's fun, and it's gonna get real fun real soon. Like, it's gonna get crazy real soon. These guys are too good. You know that.
And Keith, honestly, to me, that feels like a great place to leave the episode, because that's the energy that I want these fans to take into this Monday. You got work. Maybe you're listening to this in the morning. You got work. You're going to conquer that day. And then at 7:30, the Nets are taking on the Heat. And it's just another day to get a win. And it's another day for this team to come together and to become that juggernaut we all know that they are going to be. So I think we should just get to the wrap up here, Keith.
Yeah, make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We've been throwing out memes. Shout out Twitchy. Twitchy helping me cook up some Dragon Ball Z, WWE, Fight Club type style, videos for the gram. Hudson killing it with the clips. We're in articles. We're being featured everywhere because Hudson is clipping the game. Boom, 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 boom. I'm making videos of scary hours for James Harden. I'm making mini breakdowns, stuff like that. So it's going good for the brand online. We appreciate all y'all that follow us, and tell a friend to tell a friend. This is Talking Nets. Keith McPherson, Hudson Flynn. Subscribe to the pod, rate the pod. If you subscribe and rate the pod, send us a screenshot. We'll send you a shirt. We got new shirts. If you're watching this at home, I'm in the hoodie. This is not 2013. This is 7/11/13. We got the Harden Coogee beard. We got the Nets World. Check it out. Shop.johnboymedia.com. Make sure you follow at johnboymedia everywhere. You can follow me at Keith McPherson. Hudson, where can they follow you?
They can follow me at Hudson Flynn _, but follow the brand. I'm putting the energy into it. Keith is putting the energy into it. Twitchy, our guy brought on now, he's putting the energy into it. Just follow the brand. Follow at Talking Nets, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're everywhere. We're growing. The brand is growing. The pod is growing. The Nets community is growing. And we're going to be here for all of it.
Absolutely. And it's fun. It's about community. It's about watching the games with people. We got the clips on Instagram. We got the clips on Twitter. Then you get Hudson and I on the pod. It's just like, bringing Brooklyn Nets fans together, basketball fans together. We appreciate y'all rocking with us. It's going to be fun. This week, we got 3 games that are winnable games, and I think the Nets are going to start rolling. Let the haters beware. When you're watching the game, you see the screen. It says, "Let's go Nets, Brooklyn."
We go hard, go